guys, Allison here, the Bored Housewife. So as you can see, the scenery has changed a little bit. My world is a little crazy right now, and so I had to make it in another room in my house this week. But I'm very curious to see what it looks like, so you might get a few more episodes in the future with this scenery. So we'll just see how, once I get into the editing process, what I think of it. Anyways, also, this is my second take at making this episode. I had family in town and I was trying to, work ahead, and in my haste to get this recorded, when I did, I totally forgot to use my external microphone. So as far as the video, if, to put it up on YouTube, it probably would have been fine. But for wanting to put it out on my podcast, like on Apple and Spotify, I just didn't like the sound quality. So here we are, episode 18, take 2. Yeah, sometimes life's just a little crazy and you just gotta go with it, right? So luckily I had a little bit of time. This is Sunday that I'm making this episode, re-shooting the episode, and hopefully I'll get it out to you guys on time. So we will see. Anyways, so this week I am working still out of the Art of Living, and today we're going to talk about this idea of, what our ideas are, what maybe our purpose is, what our, passion in life is, and we're going to talk about the very beginning process of once you figure out what that is, what you need to do. And it's not self-help, I promise. It's very philosophical. But first, I wanted to read you this quote out of the book, and it's called, or it says, first, say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. So what is it that, what would you be? Are you a good mother? Are you an ice skater? Are you someone who knows a lot about bourbon? Are you, XYZ? What is it that, fulfills you in life? Just because you're a mother doesn't mean that maybe you have something else that is of interest to you. Just because you've dedicated all of your life being a figure skater doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't other things that interest you and feed your soul sort of stuff. So, but maybe that is it. Maybe you've known your whole life. I think some people are really lucky. They figure out at a really young age that, this is their life purpose, this is their passion, this is what makes them happy, and, they're able to go forward and do that. But I guess my point is like, for some of us, we have multiple roles in our lives and in our responsibilities, but actually what, fulfills us and what our passions are and all of that, I think sometimes get jumbled together. So today we're going to talk about what it is that, you want to do, figuring that out first, and then, the more so on the other side of it, what you have to do to then do that. So, yeah. Anyway, should be a fun episode. I'm really sorry Lady Eccentric is on holiday this weekend. She's in the Caribbean on the beach somewhere needing a great vacation. So we'll see if she makes it back in time for next week's episode. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed my face again for the tutorial this week. And cheers, guys. Let's have some fun. Alright, so first things first is the cocktail of the hour. I do not have any funny stories to tell you like Lady Eccentric does, but I can give you the recipe. So here I've created an orange kiss. What I've put in it is 1 shot of orange gin. I used orange Tanqueray gin. My aunt-in-law brought that when they came to visit, so I was like, ooh, this will be fun to try to make something different with it. So I have 1 shot of that. I have 1 shot of salted caramel Crown, 1 shot of orange juice, and then I topped it with ginger ale. I know it sounds kind of weird, but the Crown kind of gives it like just kind of like a caramel, like sort of like, just a little different sort of taste to it, and I thought it was pretty good. My mom and husband tried it, and they actually both liked it too. So if you don't have or Crown or orange juice gin or orange gin either, I actually today, having remade the cocktail, I just put in the orange gin, orange juice, and ginger ale, and that's also really good too. So yeah, I'm sure if you didn't have, if you just had normal gin or couldn't find the orange gin, or really any citrus gin would probably taste really good with the orange juice and the ginger ale. So yeah, that's the cocktail. Cheers, guys. All right, so let's get to it. So the first part of that is trying to figure out what your passion is, right? I definitely enjoy writing and this podcast. I really enjoy thinking and thinking outside the box, thinking of just different ideas, what does this mean, sort of stuff, like the philosophical things. So I feel like right now I'm really kind of finding my niche and things, but maybe this isn't it. I don't know. I'm just, right now, my point of saying this is I'm exploring this idea of the podcast and my own thing, and also still trying to incorporate my writing and my love for wanting to direct and all of that into this. But the thing is you got to think about what it is that you want to do first. So if you don't know, then you should really take some time and think about it. Like, what brings you joy? What makes you happy? Once again, all of this is, productive and positive things. If you really enjoy doing heroin, I really highly recommend do not do heroin. I don't care how much joy it brings you. There are certain things that are destructive to us. And we all know what that is. I don't need to get into that. I'm talking about, like, you have this daily life. You wake up, you go to work, or you wake up, you take care of your kids, or whatever it is. And it just kind of feels monotonous. And I think sometimes when we don't, find what it is that brings us joy, or like kind of, feeding the soul sort of thing, it doesn't feel like life, just feels really boring. So whatever your thing is, it could even be travel, or maybe your thing is just trying different things, like whatever it is, think really hard first, like what that thing is. Also too, maybe you do have an idea for something that could potentially bring you income, or, take your life on some other direction. Just really think about it, and maybe you got to try some stuff out, and, maybe it doesn't necessarily work out the way that you think it is, but we'll get to that in a minute. But first, what's important is to know what it is that you want to do, because then all this other stuff, isn't going to be helpful, because you know what you want to do. So this is the thing that I think is so cool, and I love this term, and I cannot wait to share it with you. So it is called, he says, okay, I'll just read you the paragraph. It says, do your own useful work without regard to the honor or admiration your efforts might win from others. There is no such thing as vicarious merit. I love that term so much, vicarious merit. I think that just sums up my entire existence to this point of my life. But I kind of want to unpack this for a minute, because when I first read it, I was like, whoa, what is that? Vicarious merit, what is that, So my interpretation of what that means is we've all heard about living vicariously through people, right? So when you live vicariously through someone, this might be looking at Instagram photos and seeing people who live like lavish, luxurious lifestyles. This might be your mother who is stuck in Iowa that lives through all of your adventures. Not calling anyone out here, Mom. No, it's okay. But you might, like, I really admire this woman on Instagram. She lives in Provence, France, and she's a photographer, and she makes these amazing photographs. And just the life that she curates on Instagram looks so cool. And so, I live vicariously through her. I would love to live in Provence and drink wine and, just be in existence there. I think that would be so neat. But we all do that to some extent, right? Unless you're just like totally like out there and just totally always doing your thing and you're just in love with your life. I think everybody, which is totally cool, by the way, but you're probably not watching my podcast if you're like that. But I think for a lot of us, we do have those moments. So that's, we understand what living vicariously through someone is, right? So vicarious merit, that is merit that somebody outside of you puts on you, okay? So they've come up in their head, and this kind of goes back to what we talked about last week a little bit, but instead of it from your point of view, it's from somebody else's point of view. So now we're kind of switching roles here, right? So, instead of thinking like, because we all do it, like, oh, here are my expectations for my husband or for, whoever in my life is, my kids, my coworkers, whatever it is. Now turn the table and think of it from, them thinking about you. So now you're the person feeling that, oh, this is what they expect of me. Oh, I need to behave this way. I need to do this. I need to, whatever it is, insert here, right? So vicarious merit, and I'm going to give you an example of how I felt. I've felt this for a long time. Once I got into like junior high school time frame, I was a student teacher at my dance studio. And I taught a ton of little girls and dance. And so, being in a community that's, not small but not huge either, just these kids are everywhere, right? You go to the grocery store, you always run into some little girl that you teach or whatever, or there's a possibility to, even like just walking around town, you could run into their parents, or maybe you don't even recognize some of these people, but because you teach so many, like you recognize the kids, but you might not recognize the parents, but the parents might recognize you, sort of thing, So for me, I always felt like I had to uphold this like perfect image of, being a great dancer and also being a great person, having like always being on my toes about like, if I get a little bit silly or something out in public, what's that going to say about me as a dance teacher, or as a role model? Even at dance and stuff, it was like, the girls just really looked up to me. So I felt that pressure from the community and just from, people around me that, like, don't fuck up, Like, all these little girls want to be you. Like, show them a good example, which isn't a bad thing. But it's just sometimes it got a little overwhelming because it's like, you're a teenager and you want to do teenager things, but there's all this outside pressure of, like, don't party, don't, like, do anything bad, even dating boys. What kind of boys are you dating, So I didn't really get to flex many of those muscles while I was in high school because I had so many eyes on me. So, and that's okay. And it was probably a really good scenario. But when I went to college, I was like, woo! And again, not that I was bad or anything, but then I started, trying alcohol and drinking and maybe wearing clothes that were a little more revealing, just, not as modest as I was when I lived back home. just because, no one knows me anymore. And that was one of the most things that I loved about New York City, was just I didn't care what people thought of me, because there's just so many people in this town, right? So anyways, not to get on a tangent, but so vicarious merit is, it could be even your coworkers, your boss, thinking of you as like, maybe you put in extra hours all the time, but then you have something that comes up and it's a family thing and it's important, but your boss is not expecting of you, and it has, seen through your character that you're a hard worker. So it might feel kind of hard sometimes, like if you want to be like, well, you know what, I need to take a vacation and I need to take a time out and spend time with my family, that might throw your boss off, or throw some of your other coworkers off, because they're like, whoa, but you always do this, And so it's like that sort of stuff. And the same way that we need to be lenient on other people, people need to be lenient on us as well, because, we have so much, like, every day is going to be different, right? And even when you think most days are the same or whatever, who knows what's going to come up. And it's nice when people allow us to sort of like, be flexible, and I can, and know your worth too. Like if you know that you put in extra hours on a regular basis, and then the one time you don't, your boss is like, oh, well, you know what? Fuck your boss, right? Because you know within yourself that you do the hard work. You know that you pick up the slack for this person. You know what you do. Maybe you're a person who's a little bit more like relaxed at work. So like your boss not having expectations or something, like, anyways, you get what I'm saying. It's like, don't let other people's idea of you or of your character dictate who you are. And so that's what vicarious merit is. You know where you stand with yourself. If you're a hard worker, you work hard. You know when you've put in the time and the effort, and you know when you can take a break. You know when you need something for yourself. So you can't let other people dictate what that is for you. That's what vicarious merit basically means. And so, yeah, so I struggle with that a lot. And even starting this podcast, it was so hard, and putting myself on social media. And I've actually seen a few other people on social media kind of post this idea. But it's like I actually struggled a lot more with my family and friends watching this, and watching my Facebook and Instagram stuff, than I did strangers, because strangers have no idea. They don't have any preconceived idea of who I am. They're just seeing me out here in this, new realm, or this new version that some people might think. Some people might think I'm the same, but, like I ran into, we had some family stuff a few weeks ago, and some of my cousins were talking about my podcast, and I told them, I was like, yeah, I was a little insecure, because, like, when I'm around my family, I try not to cuss and stuff, and, like, on this thing, every other word is, like, fuck, shit, damn, and so I'm like, I don't know if my family knows that I curse. I don't, like, my extended family, like, I don't know if my family and friends, like, know certain things about me, and not that I'm caring less now, but it's like that almost held me back from doing this, because I knew that, like, eventually people were going to see it. I didn't want people to be, embarrassed and all this stuff, but I realized, I'm like, you know what, this is something that I want to do, and I think would add a lot of value to my life. I can't let what other people think in their, spoiling their ideas of me. I can't allow that to stop me from doing this. So that was really hard. So even still, I'm still struggling. I think one interesting thing about once you start putting yourself out on the internet is, like, the shame that you feel in the beginning goes away very quickly. So I am finally getting over it. And then I love this quote in this same chapter. It says, and the chapter's called Create Your Own Merit. So again, you know who you are. But it says, grow up. Who cares what other people think about you? Like, hello, okay, yeah. And it sounds easier than it is, right? It's like, well, I wish I didn't think, like, and I still do care. And again, let me remind you that, like, even though I'm preaching this stuff, I am still a work in progress too, guys. Like, I struggle with all of this. So I'm not just sitting here being like, I have it all figured out. Like, no. Like, I'm still struggling really hard with this too. But I'm just trying to internalize it and realize that, like, it really doesn't matter what other people think of you. And if you think, and I guess in some, like, someone could come back and be like, well, it matters what my boss thinks of me, it matters what my husband thinks of me, all these sorts of things. But I think what this more so is saying is, like, don't put yourself in those scenarios. So, like, if your job, is really demanding and expects, like, a certain thing from you, and that doesn't jive with you at all, then maybe it's time to find a new job. Or I'm not saying that lightly at all by any means, but I think there's times where, if your job is not your fulfillment in life and you're okay with that and you can find this other thing that, feeds your soul sort of thing, then, do what you got to do at work, right? But if you're sitting there at work day in and day out and you're miserable, and you have this other idea of something that you would love to do, go find the community that can provide that for you, right? And I think what's really interesting in this day and age is so many offices and, so many different companies now, personality is a huge thing, which is really neat. Because if you're not going to fit into the culture of the company, then, it's going to be bad for everybody, right? So, don't fake your way into a company. Another scenario, like, if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're working, trying to get involved with your kids' things and whatnot, and you're not vibing with the PTA ladies or you're not vibing with whoever, like, don't force yourself into those scenarios. Or if it's necessary that you do, don't care what these people think of you. If your personality isn't going to be a factor in deterring you from participating in something, then it's time for us to stop caring and just be ourselves. So that's really what that, is saying. But I know it's harder, easier said than done, right? So, yeah, but we're all just works in progress until the day we die, pretty much. So, and then the last thing I'm going to read from here is, from this chapter is, you can be justifiably happy with yourself and at ease when you've harmonized your actions with nature by recognizing what truly is your own. So that again is just reiterating that once we find out what our purpose is, what our fulfillment is, what makes us, gives us joy, gives us some meaning, then everything will start to kind of fall into place. So when we're pushing things that aren't natural, when we're pushing things that don't feel good to us, if you have this idea, but doesn't excite you, then don't do that thing, because it's going to be really, really hard to make it happen. But if you find that you've discovered a new way of flossing your teeth and you're super excited to show people, like, what you've created or share your idea, and that gives you so much joy, you will work day and night figuring out how to share this with more people, why this is so revolutionary, right? So it's like when we do things that, aren't natural and that are fighting against us, just to do them because, like, again, the social media aspect of doing all this is really difficult for me. So I struggle the most with that. And I don't know if that's something that I'm just going to have to get over, or if it's something that, maybe I'm hoping that with time I'll figure out the social media aspect of all of this, and I have some ideas. So it's getting easier. But, incorporating my view on it, I think is going to be a lot easier than trying to do, like, all these funny trends and stuff and whatever on social media. So it's like when we do things that are natural and are that excite us, then it makes it a lot easier, right, to continue and not give a shit and just be ourselves and, not let other people and their ideas affect what we know we are and what we know what our value and worth is. And so then the last thing to that point that I'm going to talk about is again, with the easier said than done, like caring about things. I have, I think, pretty decent self-esteem. I had a very supportive family. My mom always is about, lifting yourself up and all of that. And I still struggle with this. So I think that for some of us, we were brought up in really great environments, or maybe just how our personality is. We can kind of figure out all of this on our own. We can figure out what our purpose is, and we can, in our head, work through the not caring about what other people think about us thing. For other people, you might have some trauma in your life or whatever, like, a mental block there, and you might need to seek therapy. And I'm not saying, like, I'm saying this because I think therapy and philosophy can go hand in hand sometimes. I've never done therapy before, but, like, if I ever was to be a therapist, I think I would incorporate a lot of philosophical ideas into my practice, because I think that, it helps to open the mind and things. But sometimes, you need an expert who is trained and understands the mind and emotions and all of that to help you work through some things so that you can get to a place where, you don't care about people. And I'm always a huge advocate for mental health, because I just don't think enough of us do it and take advantage of the things that are out there for us. And I think that the stigma around it is really horrible. So I just want to continue to talk about that too, because a lot of these ideas are, these wider open thinking ideas. And I hope that it helps a lot of you, like, work through your things. But if you're sitting there and you're just like, I can't get over what people think of me. I constantly worry about it. I do these rituals and I go through all this stuff, and, I've tried to not care, but I can't. If you're that person, then maybe it's time to go talk to somebody, and maybe that person can help you try to, like, see things in a different way that, like, just philosophy isn't necessarily going to get you through. So that was my one last point on that. This first aspect of, kind of going after what you need to do, because if you have that block, it's gonna be really hard to take the next step forward and to, like, implement things into your life that are, like, going to, make you having to put yourself out there and do all these sorts of things. So, yeah, that's what I have to say on that. Okay. So the next part is, it says, focus on your main duty. And so I'll read the beginning here. It says, there is a time and place for diversion and amusements, but you should never allow them to override your true purposes. So it goes on to give this little example, like, if you were on a ship, you were a crew person on a ship, and you went into dock and you went out and had some drinks and had some fun, but knowing that if you don't get back on that ship, then you're going to be stranded there and you're going to lose your job and, like, all the things, right? So what would you do? You would probably stick closer to to the ship. You would make sure you could hear them call you back. If you had any sort of, like, any sort of ailments at all, you wouldn't let yourself get too far, right? Because it's important to get back on the ship. However, you've recognized that if you don't get off of the ship or whatever, maybe you won't get the time to relax and have, just get off the water for a few minutes, right? So that's kind of the example they have there. So how I interpret this, and I love it so much because I am really bad at this. I allow distractions to stop me from doing so many things. Even getting this podcast done. Again, I'm going to just reiterate, it's very important to me that I do this. I really enjoy doing it. But I allow so many things to distract me from getting it done, and I don't know why. Other than, it's hard work getting it together, and, I'm feeling a little lazy, but, so I easily allow people to be like, hey, like, come on out for drinks or come hang out, and I'm like, I think I've explained this to you guys before, but like, my creativity does not set in until the afternoon. So it's really hard to be on a normal 9 to 5 schedule like a lot of people are, because I'm like, in the mornings, I want to sit there and think and contemplate about life. And then I usually get my cleaning done in the mornings, or at least started. Um, and then, maybe I work out, maybe, I just take some time to myself, whatever it is. And then in the afternoons, I'm ready to go. And I could go until like probably 11 o'clock or midnight doing my creative thing. But I realized that doesn't fit into everyone's schedule. So it gets tough sometimes because, like, my husband, needs to come home, and I can't, like, I don't have a special place to do this. And also, I want to spend time with him, too. So it just kind of sucks because, like, I've realized that my creativity happens more in the afternoon into the evening, but that's not very conducive with a normal lifestyle. So I haven't figured out that solution yet. I'm working on it. But so I allow these things to become excuses in my life and for not getting things done. And so the second part to this is then blaming others for things that you don't get done. So it's really easy for me to, get started on this late or not get started at all. And then it get to a certain time and me realizing, well, it's going to take a few hours to get this all together, get myself together, and then shoot the episode. By the time, I'm just getting to shooting the episode, my husband's going to be coming home and wanting dinner. So, you know what, I'm just not going to do it today. And it's like, I blame it on the fact that, like, the schedule doesn't work out for me. But the reality is like, it's my fault. I had all day to do this. Even using, again, the creativity, my creativity kicks in the afternoon. That's an excuse, and that's on me. So I understand it is the way it is. That's when I get my juices flowing. But I also understand that it's my fault that I didn't get it done. Allowing people to persuade me to go out for drinks or go out for dinner or whatever when I know I need to do things. Again, like, if I maybe planned my time better, or even just said no, like setting those boundaries, right? Like, and next week we're going to do a whole episode on boundaries. A friend suggested it and needs some help in that arena. So I was like, ooh, that's a really good one because I'm struggling also with boundaries right now. But yeah, it's just like, boundaries can take place in any shape or form too. It doesn't have to just be with people. It can be with yourself. It can be, with your time and all of that. So for me, like, I've gotten better at saying no to things when I know that I have, my creative stuff to do. But it's hard because, they don't always understand this. And especially since I don't make money at this, it's like, why do you put so much time and effort into it? But it's like, I don't care. I don't care anymore, right? But then saying to myself, and taking the responsibility for, you didn't get this done today, and now you're scrambling on a Sunday afternoon trying to film this and get it all together because you had family in town visiting. Like, I could blame the fact that my family was in town, but I had the time and I did not use it properly. So shame on you, Allison. But anyways, so, I think a lot of us tend to do that. I would love to take but out of my vocabulary, because I do it all the time. I always am like, oh, here's my excuse for not getting it done, and, or, oh, I didn't get it done, and, like, it's my fault that I didn't get it done, but now here's my excuse as to why I didn't get it done. And it's just like, it's not fair. It's like, it should just be, I didn't get it done. End. No but. I didn't get it done. Because the excuse doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. And whatever that distraction is, whatever your issue is, if you want to get something done, then you're going to get it done, right? Nothing's going to stand in your way of getting it done, which will bring me into the last point. This is really good. I really like I really like the orange gin with the orange juice. It's really yummy. So now my last point in the title of this chapter is your will is always within your power. So then this paragraph says, nothing truly stops you, nothing truly holds you back, for your own will is always within your control. Then goes on to say, sickness may challenge your body, but are you merely your body? Lameness may impede your legs, but are you not merely your legs? Your will is bigger than your legs. Your will needn't be affected by an incident unless you let it. Remember, this is everything that happens to you. So, what does that mean? Your will within your power, if you truly want this thing in your life, you will make it happen. You see, these people that do incredible things that when they get in car accidents and lose their legs, and then they don't let that hold them back. Sometimes it's almost like, I think some of those people are kind of given a gift and not in that, they lose their ability to walk or their eyesight or, whatever it is. Like, obviously that's tragic and it's horrible. But I think those people sometimes get a gift that a lot of people don't get, which is, they see that life is short and they see that, there's so much to do. And so, unfortunately, they find out after the fact of something, disability that's going to potentially hold them back a little bit. But I think I just saw a woman recently on Instagram. She was told she would never walk again. And she then has since, which, she's probably not doing super difficult hikes, but she went and saw this really amazing view that she had to hike to in some national park. And that was really important for her to do. So it's like, why do we have to wait for those moments where something so crazy, big, and tragic happened to us to start living, And not everyone is like that, of course, but I'm trying not to be like that. I'm trying to realize what a gift all of this is and that, we have to use our time as best as we can. But that's the point. It's like, if there is, and again, I'll use my podcast as an example. It's really important to me to get these episodes out on Monday because, I realize that you guys have gotten accustomed to them and, you count on that every week. And I do the same thing with other people's accounts that I listen to and look at and all of that. It's like when they're not posting, when they're not being consistent, it's a little upsetting. And I wish I could be a little bit more consistent on the social media front. I'm just not right now, so I'm trying to figure that out better. But as far as, at least the podcast, this is what I actually want to do. So if my will is there to create this, then even with all the family that we've had come and visit and the time that I haven't had to be able to put into this, I'm still figuring out ways to, make these podcasts. So I think that's like, even if you lose your eyesight, you've seen those people that have lose their eyesight and they're still painters. You see people who like go deaf and they still make music. I mean, there's so many things that, so many people would look at, but it's like the thing that he's saying is that our will is so much bigger. Our will is, connected to our soul, if you want to think of it that way. The will is outside of us, okay? And that's our power. That's what pushes us forward, and no matter what our scenario is, to do the thing that we want to do. So we are not merely this physical form of our body, okay? Our mind, is working, and our soul can feel and all of this. So as that's, that whole thing, allows us to overcome whatever the obstacle is. Because the thing is, life is all about obstacles. Life is hard. Maybe you don't have enough money. Maybe, you don't have the time. Maybe you don't have this or that. Well, when it's something that you actually want to do and that you're, making this now your fulfillment and your passion, then you're going to figure out how to do it. And nothing is going to get in your way. If you decide that you want to be incredibly physically fit and that is what is going to make you happy in this life, You are going to wake up every day and you're going to go to the gym when you say you're going to go to the gym. You're going to eat the right things, right? You're going to eat what's going to give you the sort of physique that you want. Like, Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger because, genetics. Like, he was who he was because that was his passion, that was his will, You can look at a million people like that in any sort of scenario, in any sort of thing that, we see those people that are top performers in XYZ, right? It's like you read their biographies, you read what they did, and they lived and breathed what they did. And just one little point I'm going to make on that. I think sometimes, when we have passions, I think some people become a little upset. So I notice, like, a lot of athletes and stuff, like, their life becomes the game, right? And it's not until later in their career when they start to kind of relax and do some other things because they've finally gotten to the point that they needed to get. I think you can have balance. I think there's life balance for sure. I think it just depends on what you need to do. So, if your passion, is creating some new app or some new startup or something, realize the sacrifices that are going to probably come with that. Like, if you have a family, your family is going to take a back seat probably for a while. If it's something that's more of like a hobby, you can fit that in and still have, a nice balance in life. So I think it's all just, a lot of it is just choices and what it is that's going to fulfill us. But, again, if you're doing a startup and you're like, this is my fulfillment in life, but at the same time, my family is very important to me, then you're going to figure out how to incorporate all of it. You're going to have to figure out what that balance is for you to be able to be, fully harmonized, because otherwise it's, again, you're just kind of hitting this. And that's why I think we can't have multiple passions. We can have multiple fulfillments. I think definitely if you're a parent, you're going to. I mean, having a kid and, being a parent to something and, helping them grow into a human and be functioning and all of this, that is a full-time job, as we all know, right? But, to say it has to be your only job, I mean, no, you can totally do something else that gives you more of a purpose, and it's just a matter of how you're going to figure out how to balance all of that, right? So I'm going to wrap it up now. Okay, so for the wrap up, I'm going to use this example to kind of walk through the three sort of ideas that I talked about today. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie The Secret Garden. It was one of my favorites as a kid. And I can't remember the version that I would watch, but it was like a live action version. And the beginning of it had this little girl, and I don't know if all the stories are like this, but she lived in India, and there was like an earthquake and her parents died, so she was sent to live with her uncle in this like English castle. It was just so cool. Anyways, I watched this specific version, so I'm not sure. If I find it, I'll post it on my social media for you guys to see. But anyways, so in that movie, right, she's a very strong-willed person, and her whole life is basically taken from her, everything she knows, and she lives in this English castle thing with an uncle who could give two shits about her at the time. So, as she's kind of exploring, she finds this cousin of hers who's just locked away in this room, and I don't know what's up with this kid, but basically everybody's told him that he's a cripple and that he's sick and he can't do anything, and he believes them. That's what he grew up knowing and all of that. So she finds him and they start to have a relationship, and he's so, whiny and bratty and all this, and she just doesn't take a shit, right? She's just like, whatever, like, you're such a privileged little brat, like, I can't even deal with you. Well, he wants to be her friend. So, he tries to, like, realize, like, oh, I guess, like, my demeanor and my personality isn't gonna, make me her friend. Well, she gets to go outside and play and all this, and, then she finds the garden, and it's his mother's garden, so he gets really interested in this. So now his will is that he wants to see this garden, But, he's been told that he's sick and he can't walk and all this for so long that kind of holds him back. And so he finds his purpose, right? He wants to be her friend. He wants to see the garden that, his dead mother made. He wants to see, he wants to get outside. So now he's finally realizing that if I want to move on with my life, if I want to have relationships and all of this, I'm going to have to leave this room eventually. So they start to work on it, and she helps him. And, some of it is like a little tough love on her part. And that's where, again, maybe you need to see a therapist. Maybe you need to talk to somebody to help you kind of like work through some things. But, he finally gets out there, and, like, regardless of his condition and all of that, he finally gets to see the garden, and they become friends, and he gets another friend, and he can walk again, and he overcomes all of this stuff, right? Overcomes everything that everyone told him different, right? So the point of that is just like, we can't allow these sorts of things, the vicarious merit, people telling you who you are, what you're supposed to be. Get rid of that shit, right? Going after what it is that you really wanted to do. If you want to be able to do this thing, then your will is bigger than you, and you'll figure out how to make it happen, right? And then, just stop blaming other people too for what that is. Like, don't let people distract you from what your end goals are, and, follow through. And then, giving into the will, basically, allowing it to push you and give you the power that you need to do to accomplish what your goals or whatever it is, finishing that and getting there. So I thought that was kind of a cool example, because I just love that movie for one. But that kid kind of goes through those stages. Like, everyone's told me who I am. Now I'm realizing that I don't have to listen to them. Okay, here's my thing that I want to do, but, I can't do it because I'm, crippled. Okay, now I realize that if I still want to see it, there's other ways. There's other solutions that we can kind of figure this out. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Please feel free to ask me any questions in the comments. I'm going to try really hard to get on social media this week and talk more about the episodes. I really liked last week when I did that. Some of you commented, and, I got some more perspectives on how some of you kind of perceive that, and how that's been put on you, even as far as when we, put these expectations and all of this on other people and expect them to act a certain way or be a certain way. I just am loving hearing that, and you guys are so awesome, and I got some messages of how you guys are really enjoying this, and it's a great way of thinking, and so I'm really excited that I'm not confusing because it's really important to me that these ideas and all this context can be relatable, and that we can use it, because that's what philosophy is all about. It's about, it's not just about, again, some dead guys sitting around talking with, their thumbs up their asses with stuff that no one's going to read or care about. So, anyways, I just thank you guys so much for watching. Please share, please comment, please like, and yeah, I guess that's about it. Cheers, guys. I hope you had fun, and I'll see you next week.